We're live in Studio B. It's not quiet time anymore on your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. Jeremy Jordan alongside Spencer Linton. Let's bring in our next guest. He is the voice of the Cougars. He was in Missouri last week, L.A. Now he's in Vegas. It's Vegas, and then he's coming back home this week because guess what? Soccer and baseball are at home in Utah. Greg, what's up? Frequent traveler miles aplenty, right?
Vegas, baby, Vegas. Yes, crisscrossing the country for Cougar Nation. I love it.
Okay, tell us about your experience with quote-unquote quiet time, where BYU focuses, because we just saw it live, and this is the thing they do on shoot-arounds on game days, and they take it very seriously, as we talked about.
Oh, yeah, non-negotiable, and everyone is in play. If you are a human being in the venue, you're going to find out about quiet time. I love it.
It's good to have quiet time. And Mark said, this is the only time they'll have quiet time. But I argued that none of them have kids, so I don't actually believe that. But let's talk about this situation. We've been talking about get to the semifinal Monday, right? Get one of those top two seeds, get the second one, get to this game. Now it's Pepperdine, which is an interesting one because it's a team that beat BYU in league. The only team that can say that, not named Gonzaga, right? So here we are. What do you expect in the rubber match?
Well, BYU certainly defended well enough to get the sweep. I mean, Pepperdine shot a really low number, in the 30s from the field, in the 20s from three. It really came down to two key factors. Pepperdine only turned it over 15 times in 2 games. They took really good care of the ball. And even though they were out-rebounded in whole, the rebounds they got were the key ones, the offensive rebounds. And so it was really offensive rebounds and ball security that allowed Pepperdine to get the split, and just barely, let's note. All right, BYU lost by 3 points in Malibu in a game, again, where Pepperdine shoots a really low number. And so I really think those two factors are I just spoke with Lorenzo Romar this morning, and he said it was rebounding that won us that game. He said getting extra shot attempts, and that's the story. Over 2 games, Pepperdine got off 19 more shots than BYU. That's how you shoot a low number and still find a way to win a game. You just get more volume. And they generate the volume by not throwing the ball away, which BYU did too much of, and crashing hard to the offensive glass. So BYU's got to do a really dedicated and focused job on the defensive glass, and not get into the double-digit turnover game too deep into the teens. They turned it over 24 times in the 2 games. When Pep's turning it over only 7-8 times a game, that's a problem.
Greg, how different is this BYU team compared to the one that lost in Malibu against Pepperdine?
I think BYU's playing better right now than the Cougs were at that time, but I think Pepperdine also looks a little better. Now, yes, they did have that 3-game losing skid late in the year where they kind of, they were challenging BYU for that 2 spot and then they dropped off. But I will say that individuals, as I update my boards from January 27th, I'll go back to my last Pepperdine board, for example, and I'll look at that January 27th game, and I'll use it as a template. And as I'm updating these individuals' numbers, I'm noting that their most important players all have better numbers now than they did 5-6 weeks ago. When I talk about the most important players, I'm talking about 3 guys right now. And the third has recently emerged, and this is kind of a storyline as well. You know about Colby Ross, you know about Kessler Edwards. Jan Zidek is the guy right now. He's the 3rd leading scorer on this team and occupying a much larger role than he had 5-6 weeks ago. So Pepperdine's got a big 3, and BYU's got a big 3. And although it's more than just individual numbers, I really think that BYU's best players have to be playing better together than they did on that day in Malibu. And I'll reference Pepperdine's big 3 as an example, all right? Ross, Edwards, and Zidek. They just played a game against Santa Clara. That is a win or your season is over game. What happened there? Those 3 guys each had double-doubles. How often does that happen? 3 college teammates, double-doubles in the same game. Edwards and Zidek, points and rebounds. Ross, points and assists. That's huge. When your 3 best guys combine to play that game, you're not losing. You're not going home. Your season continues. Now, I'm not saying that BYU's got to get double-doubles from Harms, Averett, and Barcelo, but they all 3 had suboptimal games together in Malibu, and that can't happen for BYU tonight.
Yeah, certainly the risk of a quad 3 loss is there. We talked about it. This would be, if BYU lost tonight, the worst loss in the Mark Pope area. Hasn't had a quad 3 yet. If BYU wins, it's sort of the status quo. You get to the title game. You hope to compete. Maybe you pull off the massive upset of Gonzaga. If you don't, it's all good. BYU's still in the tourney. But it could be interesting because I don't think there's a lot. like there's a little bit of bad that could happen, but maybe drops BYU's seed line in the tourney. But I think BYU's in a pretty comfortable spot regardless of what happens. But obviously you want to win. So how do you feel like this game will affect BYU's tournament seeding, if at all?
Yeah, I made the joke on Twitter this morning that that BYU's 7 seed with Joe Lunardi at least is encased in the glacier because it's not moving. it's been a 7 seed for a while now, and Joe I think has already said to a follower on Twitter the only way they get above the 7 is by beating Gonzaga. It's kind of harsh, but he says the only way they move is by beating Gonzaga. But a move downward is possible if you don't win. There's no doubt that if you lose in the Monday semis after the triple bye for a second straight year, you could drop a line or 2, depending on the projections, right? And then the only way to move up is beating Gonzaga. So that's why you kind of feel like, yeah, they are probably status quo. If they go 1-1 in Vegas, what they were before Vegas is likely what they'll be coming out of Vegas. But the potential is there for a huge leap, and I think it's more than a seed line if you beat Gonzaga. But that said, that's for another day. You have to avoid losing after the triple bye. You know, BYU had that first experience with it last year and, you know, had arguably their worst game of the year, right? Scored 50 points and lost to St. Mary's, albeit on a buzzer beater, and it was going to be a grind anyway at St. Mary's. That said, they kind of knew that, you know, win or lose, they'd be okay. As it turns out, last year they weren't okay because there was no tournament. This year, win or lose, they're going to be okay. It's the same situation, but I think the potential is there to do a little bit more than maybe a seed if they can, you know, get to Tuesday and pull off a miraculous upset. As for tonight, take care of business, move on. And it's nice to know you're locked. And I mean, BYU's locked. They were locked last year. That's a great way to go into tournament play. Pepperdine's got more of an edge, though, right? Pepperdine has the edge BYU doesn't have tonight. They are playing to extend their season. It's win or go home. For BYU, it's not that case.
The voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell, with us on BYU Sports Nation. I want you gentlemen to know that we are apparently in the good graces with BYU basketball based on our behavior within quiet time. Mark Pope just yelled my name. Caleb Lohner wanted to point out that he can see your face, Greg. He said, Greg, your head looks awesome. They can see the TV up here. So we did our part. They're ready to roll. They're in good spirits right now.
I love tournament play. Nothing beats Vegas in March. No matter what the league, it's an incomparable feeling. And as long as I've been doing this, that same buzz and energy always creates itself. Even without fans in the stands tonight, it's going to be a special night at the Orleans Arena. There's something irreplaceable about being able to win and play another day.
Okay, let's talk about the matchup
Greg,
some more with go ahead, Spence.
I was going to ask, we've been talking about Y factors tonight, and you brought up the big 3. Obviously, Harms, Barcelo, Averett. Typically, when they play well, BYU plays well. But who is maybe the guy outside of those 3 that you expect to step up and play well tonight and be the quote-unquote Y factor?
Well, and it's because he actually had quite a good game in Malibu. In fact, when he was coming off the bench that day, the bench guys, Harward, Johnson, and Lohner, were, maybe, among the best players on the floor that day. It was, the starters, the big 3, the seniors who kind of had, again, off days together. So I'll go to Caleb Lohner right now. Where he is now and where he was then, he's made leaps, and yet that was a great day for him. That was a big day for him, and maybe kind of hinted at how his late season might come along. But I think Caleb Lohner, now that he's starting, he wasn't starting then, could be somebody that BYU really depends on tonight to give them a bit of a Y factor beyond the big 3. And I really do focus on those big 3. Again, I'm not asking that they each have double-doubles tonight, but it was unusual that in Malibu, they all struggled at the same time. And clearly they're going to be a focal point. But they, if just one of them had, maybe an average day for them, they win that game. BYU lost by 1 possession. It was a tie game in the final minute. So it was just that close. It might have been just the difference they needed. But, maybe the second half of the St. Mary's game is a pretty good indicator of what can happen when these guys are unified in purpose. Those seniors on senior night really just carried the team to the finish line against St. Mary's. It was so great to see, and we know they're capable of it. And I think now is the time. I mean, Colby Ross is doing it for Pepperdine right now. Alex and Brandon and Matt can do it for BYU. These seniors, it's coming toward the end, potentially the end for all of them at BYU. And that sometimes does something special to a player or group of players when that much is on the line.
Yeah, and I'm sure BYU wants to avoid what it did last year, albeit against a much tougher opponent last year. That was a single-digit seed, St. Mary's, against Pepperdine tonight. Let's finish with this. Women's soccer, Greg. You were at LMU. You've been there all season with this team. We love this team. Jennifer Rockwood gets her 400th win. She's the only coach BYU's had since '95, and she is the program, essentially. That was a pretty significant milestone for her on Saturday.
Yeah, it's funny. We're on the bus after, and, she's telling tales about her first year and wandering up to Laramie and wondering, are we ever going to get a win? And it is just, you don't know what you're doing when you're starting. And then all these years later, 26 seasons later, she's a coaching legend, and BYU's a Western soccer powerhouse. And I brought this note up this morning, because she's clearly in elite company with some of the best Division I coaches in the history of the game, the Anson Dorances and Jerry Smiths and guys like that. But, she's the first female to do what she's done, which is coach at only one school and get to 400 Division I wins with that school. First woman to do it. And there are a lot of great coaches from both genders in the game, but I think it's notable that she's the first female coach to get that accomplished. And that's notable to me, to be at one place, be the program essentially, and have such continued and consistent success over a quarter century plus. And beyond all of that, you all know she's just, an amazing person and wonderful to work with, and so great for the players and BYU as an institution. So just nothing but love for Jen Rockwood and all she's done and continues to do for BYU. It's fantastic.
On International Women's Day, of course, we honor Jen Rockwood and all the women with BYU athletics. By the way, Cougar Stats did tweet that BYU was 5 of 7 from the line as we whispered through quiet time. So we're getting some stats about that, which is, I was hoping it was 6 of 7 or 7 of 7, but anyway. Greg, great stuff. We appreciate the time. 11 Eastern, Cougar pregame live starts, and then midnight Eastern, baby. It's a late one. Get a nap in.
Will do, guys. Thanks. Go Cougs.
Greg Wrubell on Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Deseret First, you know why, we show how. Yeah, 6 to 7 would have been a little better.